Anyway, before we talk about the current crazy people, let's talk about the crazy people from the past, Brian. Because there was another episode of Dark Side of the Ring on Vice TV focusing on one of the crazier of the crazy people. In the land of fruits and nuts, he's the head cashew. Our friend Billy Jack Haynes, who, as I aptly and succinctly put it at the start of the program, started out his career as a star and finished up as a nobody. He went in reverse. And when you think about it, especially from the footage that they showed, that was pretty much true. But I'm going to let you start and vent on all the historical inaccuracies and or dates that were misrepresented. But this was overall, I thought, and you can tell me if you felt the same way, more one of the shows about a guy who at one point was a wrestler, but has just more batshit crazy before and after potentially he was into business than he was while he was in it.
Yeah, this was Dark Side ... of the Ring. They spent a lot of time dealing with a jailhouse interview where he said nothing.
But his lawyer wouldn't let him.
Every single question, his lawyer, I mean, that's all we saw was him not being able to do it. Whoever his friend was, I found intriguing. He has some friend who very matter-of-factly would, we can't really talk about that, but there's verification. Or who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah, and why isn't he communicating with Billy Jack's attorney?
I thought you were really good on here. You know, again, I don't want to kill them for the historical stuff because obviously they're trying to tell a Billy Jack Haynes story, but if you're going to tell the story about him being a wacky, crazy wrestling character, why leave out everything? You know, why leave that? They said, like, oh, he was working all these smaller territories and then he went to the WWF in 1986. No. Actually, he went to the WWF in 1984. They put him on the front cover of that program riding a sled with Hulk Hogan and Wendy Richter and Barry Windham. And then he never arrived. Then he went to Crockett, where he got a big push. And they were going to give him a bigger push.
But wait, you skipped over. He was in Florida for a while too, but also the one I thought you were going to talk about that he skipped over. And I told him the story, but when he came to World Class, because Kerry was going to do the movie and they thought they were going to lose Kerry, or at least that they believed Kerry was going to do the movie. I don't think it got that far. And Chris Adams left town because he thought Billy Jack was going to fucking kill him. And that kind of lent itself to Billy Jack's overall demeanor and reputation. But yeah, and we've told that story here before. So look up the World Class stuff.
You wouldn't know from watching this that he was married to Jeannie Clark. Chris Adams was never married to Jeannie Clark. Billy Jack Haynes was. But that wasn't brought up here. But Billy Jack...
I don't know if Billy Jack remembers by this point that he was married.
Billy Jack walked out of every single place. Sean Waltman once told me, and Sean was a fan when Billy Jack hit Florida. He said Billy Jack was bigger than Dusty at that point in time. Again, Dusty had been there for a while, but Billy Jack was huge. And then Billy Jack was gone. I mean, and that happened it happened in Portland eventually. There wasn't too many people you think of that just immediately got that level of a push everywhere and always had that intensity. You think of the early 80s magazines, you think of Tony Atlas, you think of Kerry Von Erich, you think of Hogan, eventually the Road Warriors. But him, Billy Jack, it seemed like he was a dead certain pick to be a major star in the business, but that's before everyone realized he's a kook. And the other thing I'll say as a critique is, I think this was an example of the people who make this show being too obsessed with shoot interviews. And this seemed more like a love letter to the Billy Jack Haynes shoot interviews that they love than a coherent, comprehensive story. I know. Then you hear, they only have 42 minutes. Let me tell you something. You could tell a coherent story. You don't need reenactments of everything, especially when no one looks like Ken Patera. You got some fucking schlub in there. Patera was good here. No, the reenactments, I know it's like their thing, their look, but at a certain point you have to realize all they're doing is taking away from time and story, and Jericho sucks as a narrator. But other than that, it was at least interesting.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, I like the talking heads, because And I mean, again, even if my Dallas story made the cutting room floor, Dave Sierra, Cuban Assassin, was instrumental because he's one of the guys that helped him break in to begin with in Portland. Rip Oliver's son, because Rip and they talked about, and I couldn't, but we'll get to what Billy Jack did to Rip later on in his life later. But when Billy came to Dallas, he brought Rip Oliver with him because he wanted the story I got, and I managed Rip. So I got the story from him was that Billy wanted at least one heel he knew he could work with, and they said okay. And Rip is another guy that had helped him break in. And when Billy Jack gave his notice because they found out that Kerry was coming back, and I guess if whatever the story was, they didn't want to honor the guarantee, and I'll just go back to Portland. That's when they finished Rip up by hurting Mike because and doing a deal there because Rip went back to Portland with Billy. So Dave Sierra, Rip Oliver's son, Uncle Dave was on, Mike Miller, and Lynn Denton, the grappler, who have been around the Northeast forever, and Bill Alfonso, Fonzie.
Northwest.
Around, what did I say, the Northeast?
Northeast.
I'm so used to the other side, the other hand. But like you said, it really, he started as the biggest star that he would be for the first few years, but by the time he got to the WWF in 86 for the run, that was the last year and a half. Then it was over. And then he was bleh. Patera is the only one who thought that he was a nice guy. And even then later on, he said, well, he was manipulative and had an agenda, but otherwise he had a good personality.
Everyone I've ever talked to that knew him, I don't know if nice was used, quiet guy. I think nice was used.
Quiet.
I mean, yeah.
Well, that's the thing is that we had heard in the Crockett locker room, and now with his record, he had a couple of assaults, but he didn't have a murder or homicide or whatever. But we had heard in the Crockett locker room when he came in that he had gotten a fight with some guy and hit him so hard he killed him and had been in prison. I think he'd been in prison over the assaults. Apparently the guy lived, but that's why he had a real weak handshake with the boy, not even the dead fish workers handshake, just like, I don't want to squeeze too hard. And he was very soft spoken, like he didn't want to get mad, lose control of his temper, which when you hear some of the testimony from some of the people that were around him a lot, that may make some sense. But it just, he's very quiet, very, peaceful, but what the fuck? Almost too much.
And I know they really didn't address it, and I know you really couldn't make money there or anything, but his run in 95 in Memphis was incredible. He was the best heel in the business.
Well, and that was the thing that it was a brief period of time, and we did talk about that also because they reminded me, the Dark Side guys, that he worked for me, that he was there at the Super Bowl show.
Super Bowl against Brad Armstrong, right?
Yeah. He had, after the WWF, he went back to Portland, tried to run opposition to Don Owens, the guy who had broke him in, but he was going to be the Vince McMahon of Oregon. And when that didn't work, he was out of the business for a couple of years, as far as anybody knew. And then he showed up. Randy Hales was booking at that time in Memphis and showed up there as a heel. And he didn't have the physique. He wasn't cut like he was before, but he still had the size.
He was
so
imposing.
He could carry it off, right?
Yeah, he had a run in, I think, 91 in WCW opposite Matt Bourne as Big Josh.
Yes, that's right.
He was, I think, Black Blood, maybe.
Yeah, the lumberjack had some evil
under
opposition.
Yeah,
yes.
And a lot of these guys, when Vince got rid of them in 88, the only place they really had to go, because they never ended up working for WCW, was the UWF. So a lot of these guys, when Herb Abrams started up, you saw them. Ken Patera, Killer Bees, Billy Jack Haynes, Bruno. Like everyone that left WWF in 1988 ended up working for Herb Abrams.
Well, because he was kind of like an older, poorer, and potentially already crazier version of Tony Khan. He just wanted to hire everybody that was available to be hired that he had been a fan of. But with Billy Jack, he OD'd on the plane, which is what the final straw in the WWF was, and he said he was taking 25 pills a day in the 80s of whatever description or kind, and he left guys hanging, and he blamed his head and drugs in the Oregon Wrestling Federation. And that's when he started doing the shoot promos. He was a big time coke dealer, and he did this and that. And I think we talked about it at the time a while back. I do not doubt that Billy Jack Haynes sold some people some cocaine. I do not doubt that there is that he probably beat a person up a time or two trying to collect some money for himself or other people. He was obviously somebody that would sell people stories and bills of goods and try to capitalize on it. But then when the stories get so bizarre and so far-fetched, and yes, the lawyer is advising him to leave certain subjects alone, but when one of his stories is he delivered coke to Andy Gibb, and he was the witness to the kids on the track murders, and his dad was either Vince McMahon Sr. or Lenny Montana.
The Andy Gibb story, is it that it was the coke that killed him, or he just sold him coke? Because that's not outrageous.
Well, no, I think it's the coke that killed him, but yeah, just that he just happened to, he's the Forrest Gump of crime and happened to be involved in all these things with all these famous people.
If you walk around with pockets of coke, you could run into all sorts of people.
Well, but as Bill Alfonso said,
like that.
Well, but then he should know. He had the best line of the show. When Billy Jack is saying, well, he would try to allude that he was working for the Clintons from Arkansas. Fonzie said, why the fuck would Bill Clinton call Billy Jack Haynes? And then sometimes the easiest, most correct answer is the simplest. Why the fuck would Bill Clinton call Billy Jack Haynes? It's a goddamn coked up lunatic fucking punch drunk, as they used to say, wrestler. You could probably find more reliable fucking people in the special forces. And he said the Bush family was involved in 9/11. And he got beaten up for real by somebody for some reason in 2006, but he told the local journalist that was working on his story out there that a local crime family did it at their car lot over a bad coke deal in the 80s where he ripped them off. Well, why did they wait 20 years? Could it have been for something else or just some random motherfucker that he tried to con and he concocted a story? Because the same journalist said that he told Billy Jack a story about a murder that he was working on that Billy Jack had heard for the first time. And 2 months later, Billy Jack was telling the journalist that he was there when it happened.
Was that a journalist or a cop?
No, that was a journalist that was working on that story.
I thought that was a cop, as I remembered back. Okay.
But I mean, and then when he was homeless, Billy Jack, he moved in with Rip Oliver when Rip was dying from cancer. And Rip's son said he was stealing Rip's pills. And he talked Rip into doing a deal where they took money from the Cauliflower Alley Club to save Rip's house. Rip knew he was dying and they just split it. But then he just, again, he was homeless and just moves into this house of a guy that helped break him in and steals his pills and lives in his fucking house when he's dying. And then when his other friend died, that's when he married the friend's mother, who was 85 years old. Go ahead.
You have to hate hearing that if you're someone who donates to Cauliflower Alley or someone who, gives them money. The idea they could be getting scammed like that—that's pretty.
What? Awful. Yeah, and all the way, and stealing the cancer patient's medicine. And
I'm glad you brought up his haircut. Although you said Pete Best. Pete Best never really had a mop top. It's more like Brian Jones from the dead.
Not from the the Grateful Dead from the fucking actual Dead.
What a great head of hair. I mean, you saw him in prison. It's all the way trimmed down and no bald spots that are visible. What a great head of hair.
Well, that's the way to look at the positive side of things, Brian.
Yeah.
He killed his wife and he stole cancer patients' medicine and he ripped off all these people, but he had a hell of a head of hair.
A thick head of hair. I think people would kill for something like that. Yeah.
Or he might kill them and
take their hair? What's he going to do?
So kill him and take their hair.
It's the science of the lambs.
Yes, that's who's responsible for this whole thing. But God, and the point is, again, he had a friend, and they showed the picture of the friend who was a younger guy. And when he dies, then Billy Jack marries the guy's mother, who's 15 years older than Billy Jack, and the friend that you pointed out of Billy Jack's that was say, oh, he loves her. He's the only thing in the world, or she's the only thing in the world that he loves. She's had dementia. Her family didn't approve of Billy Jack. He's found another way to fucking live in somebody's house. And then he shoots her in the head and claims it was a mercy killing. And Lynn Denton, the co-winner of the line of the show, shot her in the head and called it a mercy killing. I don't know, brother. I mean, well, that's about, Lynn's about as wrestling as you can get. I don't know, brother. What the fuck? If you were going to put an elderly, infirm, sick loved one out of their misery, is there a way to do the killing with more mercy than hold still, honey? I don't want to miss. Bam! And shooting her in the head? What about the old pillow smother you saw in the Betty Davis movies?
Let's not recommend ways to kill.
Well, I'm not recommending anything. It's up to the individual perpetrator as to whether they want to do these things, but I'm saying there's less violent ways of doing it, more merciful.
Well, I don't know what you want me to say about that. But
well, you could admit that the lambs agree.
I can't speak for the lambs. Who am I?
Well, bah, say. We'll speak for those lambs. Bah. Humbug. Next week, the Sheik, baby. I can't wait. I want to see the Sheik.
Is that the last episode of the season?
I don't know. I haven't been counting. They're so good. They just appear before me every week, and I live from week to week for the night when I can watch more. Because you know why?
Because you're on it.
Because it's only 45 minutes with commercials, and there's no actual goddamn wrestling matches from today on it. It's the easiest thing I watch all week. Everything else is 3 hours long and a goddamn gymnastics meet in the middle of a goddamn romper room.
Have you ever been on more episodes in a season?
Well, it's called for. They've done surveys.
You're the highlight of the show very often. I agree.
I was the subject of 3 double-blind clinical trials. And both of those blind people said that I was the best one on the show. That way they got out of the clinic quicker.
And the third one sent you the clock.
And God damn it, what?
It is 10:47.
No, it's not.
You got one number right.
Next week, the Sheik.
All right. Well, let's light a fire under this show and burn, baby, burn.
That's not a pitch to any sponsor.
Oh, well, it is your show, so the pitches are all yours.
You know what I'm thinking? If you haven't heard of,
I have no idea.
You don't know. Well, you'll find out. If you haven't heard the Billy Jack Haynes story or any of these other Dark Side of the Ring stories, Brian, you don't want to be left out. You want to hear things. You want to know what's going on in the world. If you haven't heard these stories, maybe the problem is you. Maybe it's not that the stories aren't being told. Maybe that you're not picking up on them. Because it's not just the laying down of the stories, it's the picking up of the stories. And I have had situations in time, I've told you, I was hit by lightning. And I have a very specialized situation with my hearing where every once in a while, in a loud room with a lot of background noise, when somebody's talking to me from across the table, I just mimic their expression. If they're smiling, I smile. When they laugh, I laugh. Or if they look mad, I shake my head in disgust. You know why, Brian? Because I can't hear one goddamn thing they're saying. And I understand there's a lot of people out there in today's world, especially because of the level of background noise, which has never been louder. If you walk down the street, what do you hear? A bunch of goddamn nonsense, a bunch of honking and a bunch of clattering and a bunch of stepping and a bunch of hammering. And that's, I'm telling you, it's all you can do to just not go crazy with all the noise. And you can't hear people when they're talking. Somebody might come up to you on the street and say, hey, would you like to tickle my taint? And because they smile, then you smile. And the next thing you know, you're in a back alley somewhere doing things that you really didn't think you were going to do that day.
What kind of example is this? What Jim is trying to say is that
you need to hear things clearly.
Suffer from hearing loss. And of course, there are many things that could cause it. A lot of us go to or have gone to a lot of concerts and didn't put anything in our ears to protect ourselves. And now we're dealing with the ramifications. And we have a friend who can help with the ramifications of life and make you so that you can hear all sorts of things that you want to hear. Let's stay appropriate. Go, Jim.
Yes. Well, they don't make ramifications. They make hearing aids. Now, as you said, if you've gone to concerts with no protection, and let's face it, folks, when you're young, it's awful hard to get those especially the lubricated condoms over the top of your ears.
Ear protection, I'm speaking
no matter how you've damaged your ears, no matter what's been poked into them or what kind of loud sounds, the point is, if you can't hear, you need to do something about it. And our friends at MD Hearing, who sponsor this fine podcast, make high quality, easy to use, rechargeable hearing aids with exceptional sound quality that are personalized to your hearing profile. And they've recently cut their price in half despite all of this inflation craziness. You want to know why? Because what they did was they found out that if you make a lot of things, then they get cheaper. So they were able to cut their price they've got millions of these things and they want to stick them in your ears. And that's why they are now telling you about this. They have just launched the Neo XS, MD Hearing's smallest hearing aid ever. It fits inside your ear. Nobody's going to know it's there. As a matter of fact, you have to have also your family members sign a document that swears them to silence.
There is no swearing, no document signing, no.
Well, they're not allowed to tell anybody you're wearing this thing because nobody's going to be able to see it. You can actually pass swearing in a court of law that you don't have this thing in, because the only way that the prosecutor would be able to prove differently is if he crawled up inside your ear like some kind of brain worm. But I'll tell you what, MD Hearing was found by an ENT surgeon. That's E-N-T, ENT, who saw how many of his patients needed hearing aids but couldn't afford them, and he made it his mission to develop a quality hearing aid that anyone could afford, and now anyone can hear because they can afford the aid that he has built to help you with your hearing. They've sold over 2 million of them. That's what I was talking about. They made a bunch of these things, and that's how that they can pass the savings on to you, and they offer a 45-day risk-free trial with a 100% money-back guarantee. You can't hear good, you try these, you still can't hear good, they'll give you your money back. They haven't figured out a way to screw you on it because you're deaf, but you're not blind, but that may be coming. But right now...
No, that won't be coming. These are honorable people, good people.
Well, right now, they haven't been able to figure out any way to... They can't figure out a way to keep your money if you're not happy. They're still working on it, but right now you can buy with confidence.
They are happy with their product, and they think you will be, which we think you will be. We have our own set of... I have one, you have one, they have many more for many of you. If you have hearing loss, and so many of you do, maybe from me screaming at you, many of you do, now's the time to do something about it.
Yes, they were just selected over there at MD Hearing to be the hearing aid supplier for top Medicare Advantage plans. So they're probably already in your grandparents' head. make sure they end up in your head too.
Well, again, the audience, some of them may be the grandparents. It's not about getting grandparents.
The Medicare. Well, fuck, I ain't going to be able to be eligible for Medicare for 2.5 more years. Get the high quality, affordable hearing aids that you deserve before you crumble into dust of old age with MD Hearing. And right now, go to shopmdhearing.com and use that. That's MD Hearing, HEARING, shopmdhearing.com, and use the promo code JCE. You're going to get a pair of hearing aids for just $297. Comes along with a free charging case, which is a $100 value. And as I mentioned, 45-day risk-free trial, 100% money-back guarantee, or just wander around the house in a confused state because you don't know what's going on around you because you can't hear a thunder. You could do that too. We're not stopping you.
That's right. Choose the senses, including the sense of hearing, with MD Hearing. One more time, Jim, for the listeners that could use some help. What's that promo code?
ShopMDHearing.com.
Ooh.
Promo code JCE. That's for the listeners that are hard of hearing.